On this channel, we spend a lot of time reviewing cleaner, greener, safer and smarter forms of transport, and for whatever reason, that usually ends up being new electric vehicles that are coming to market, new electric cars, electric motorbikes on occasion. And the majority of those vehicles are, how should I put this, not budget oriented. They're too expensive for a lot of people to be able to afford. So this year, one of the things we've been interested in reviewing are more affordable alternatives to a full-size electric vehicle. Because let's face it, most people commute less than 20 miles to work every day. Most people live in urban areas, or at least suburban areas. And if your choice is to go with an electric bicycle and then keep your internal combustion engine car because a plug-in hybrid or a fully electric vehicle is just too expensive for you, the benefits to you as a person are still there. Most electric bikes on the market today are designed to be commuter vehicles. They might have a large enough battery pack to get you to and from your place of work and home again, maybe with a charge in the middle of the day under your desk. They're not really designed to go off-roading. This is the Velowave Ranger FMTB3 fat tyre bike. And earlier this year, we unboxed this and put it together on this channel. Michael, our cameraman, who happens to be a bit of a bike aficionado, and myself, we've been putting this through its paces. Combined, we've ridden a pretty long distance, and now we're about to share our thoughts. But before I hit some gravel tracks and tell you my thoughts, let's go over some of the particulars. Providing power for this particular model is a 48-volt lithium-ion battery pack. If you go for the Class 2 variant, it's a 15 amp hour battery. If you go for the Class 3, which is what this is, it is a 16 amp hour battery. And it has a claimed maximum range in ideal situations of around 20 to 40 miles. Now, that distance does depend on A, how heavy you are, and B, how fit you are. I've managed to exceed that 40-mile range doing most of the work myself, but I've also managed to flatten the battery completely in much less than the stated range. Of course, if you're climbing hills and you're on gravel tracks, that is going to be the thing. In terms of weight, you would want this to be a particularly light bike, especially if you're going to be hauling it into the back of your car so you can hit the trails at the weekend. Unfortunately, this is not light. It's 74.6 pounds, or about 33 and a bit kilos. That's mostly down to this bike's battery pack and just its plus-sized nature. One feature I really like is that while the battery is removable, there's a key to lock it in place, and you can actually charge it on the bike, which is what we've been doing. I don't think we've removed it the entire time we've been riding it. Operating the bike is pretty simple. On the right-hand side, you've got a standard 7-speed Shimano shifter with a 52-tooth chainring at the front. If that sounds like high gearing, it is. That's a particular problem for a lot of electric bicycles on the market. And frankly, it's something that we would like to see changed, because if you do run out of power, or you just opt to try and save your battery to give you more range, it's kind of hard work to get the bike moving under just pedal power alone. Operating the motor and the assisted pedelec system is done via this little controller on the left-hand side of the handlebars. You press the power button to turn it on, and it's not the brightest display, but it does display the information quite nicely, especially here in Oregon where it's currently raining. You can choose any level of assistance from 0, no assistance, all the way up to 5, which will give you access to the 82 and some Newton meters of maximum torque. If you want to use this as just a throttle and go bike with no pedal effort from you, there is a thumb throttle that you operate here with your left-hand thumb, but aside from that, this feels like any other bike. You also get an integrated kickstand, and there are models available with mudguards and carriers, although this particular variant, as it arrived, did not have. There's also adjustable shocks, and when I say adjustable, I mean you can have them fully dampened or you can lock them off if you prefer a harder riding experience. Of course, this does have no suspension at the rear, meaning that it is a hard tail, and to be honest, it doesn't ride too badly. Let's take it on the trail and see what we think. So the biggest thing you notice when riding the Velowave Ranger FMTB3 fat bike is that it's not really a road bike. On roads like this, you're definitely having to work pretty hard. I've got it currently set in the assist mode, which means if I pedal, the 750 watt motor assists me. I am at a comfortable cadence, so think about 60 or 70 revolutions per minute, which is kind of my favorite range to be in. Right now, I'm pushing 30 miles an hour, and there's a lot of noise from the motor. Fat bikes are not designed as commuter bikes. They're designed as bikes that you go have fun with on a trail, off-road, sand or snow. And the whole purpose of a fat tire bike is that they are low pressure tires. And low pressure tires that are designed to get you through boggy, wet, unstable ground without you getting stuck. And for that reason, they're really not the best of options, but we're just about to hit a trail, so let's find out. And when I say a trail, I actually mean a dirt road downhill, and as soon as you transition to dirt, this bike really comes to life. Obviously, if you stand up, you're getting a lot more movement. The fat tire gives you plenty of grip, and the disc brakes, which are hydraulic, really soak up a lot of bumps. Now, Michael and I have both taken this off-road, and we've noticed that this is not really designed as a go out every weekend and do a trail kind of affair. Instead, this is a bike for someone who occasionally wants to go out and ride on a trail. Right now I'm doing about 30 miles an hour downhill on gravel. The brakes are nice and solid. I'm just feathering them right now, and while I can feel a little bit of fade, the geometry of the handlebars and everything else allows me to feel everything that's going on. Not too much in the way of lack of control. Coming around this corner here. Now, I am not pushing this by any stretch of the imagination, although I am doing kind of 30 miles an hour through here. There's lots of loose gravel on this trail, so I am kind of trying to just keep things as safe as I possibly can. And on a trail like this, that's where this bike really shines. Super huge bumps are not this bike's fan. Michael commented he actually took it on a downhill mountain bike trail recently, and he noticed that on one particular occasion the seat post moved, or rather the actual seat moved, and he ended up in a situation where the seat bent underneath. I'm not gripping it too hard. There is a deer right in front of me. That was beautiful. All right, that was so much fun. Now, kind of out of the really deep gravel and onto more muddy, soft stuff. And if you let your hands kind of just rest on the handlebars, you just feather the brake. The bike's really sure-footed. I'm not actually sitting in my saddle, and I don't think I would want to. I just feel like the geometry of this bike is not necessarily best for me, which is interesting because Velowave says that it's built for someone of my frame size. It feels a bit short, to be honest. Probably not helped by the fact that the gearing on this, like most electric bicycles, it's not really geared for someone who wants to ride this without motor and then turn the motor on for the tough stuff. The other thing we cannot ignore is the metal. The metal on this is super soft, like super soft. It's aluminium for the most part. Things like the head of the handlebars and the seat mechanics, they all feel very soft metal, and Michael has had the head come loose a couple of times in his riding it. I've had the head loose a couple of times. And so it's a bike that if you were riding it regularly, you would want to carry a toolkit with you at all times. Now you do get some tools with it, but if you watched the review when we put it together, you'll note that we said that the tools were a bit on the soft side, much on the soft side. So the suspension on this can be set to be locked, so you effectively have what amounts to a completely hard frame bike. Or you can set it to one where it gives you a little bit of suspension. The problem with that is if you then want to accelerate, you can't see it probably, but the forks bounce up and down. But right now, I'm on the flat, I'm on the road. I'm probably doing about 70 revolutions per minute with my pedals. I'm in the top gear, and we're pushing 30 miles an hour. In fact, I'm closing in on Michael in the camera car, so that says a lot, really. In fact, I nearly hit him. Now we've done the downhill, let's climb back up the hill. And this is the point at which this motor really helps. So if you're like me, and you're not the fittest person in the world, getting up these kind of hills can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. And I'm still doing 13 miles an hour, which is pretty impressive. So let's talk about the modes for this bike. It's actually got 7 modes. There's a selectable amount of power in pedelec mode, and you can set it to off, which is 0, and then 1 to 5. And it basically tells you how much power the motor is going to dial in to assist you. Right now, I'm in the middle gear, and my revolutions are probably about 60, and the bike is in level 5, which means there's a torque sensor on the pedal crank that detects how fast your pedals are moving, and then it proportionally adds whatever assistance is required to get you up and out. I left my house with a 100% charge. I'm now at 79%. Most of that energy has disappeared climbing this hill. Most of that energy. Let's talk range a second. When we got this, one of the first things I did was to ride from my house up in the mountains to a place in downtown Hillsborough for an optician's appointment. It's a nice day. I wanted to test out the bike, and so I jumped on it. Now I live at about 800 and some feet, and so the first 10 miles down into the valley were particularly efficient. When I got onto the flat, I kept distance to minimum. I think I kept it like between 2 and 3 most of the time. And I rode it hard. And I did most of the work. I made it to the opticians after 20 miles, and I think my state of charge on the battery was somewhere in the region of like 71 or 72%. I then rode back to the town I live in, and I think I probably reached the town I live in with about 50% state of charge remaining. And then I had to climb sort of 7 miles. And in that situation, I tell you, I was glad I had the battery. I ran out just as I was pulling in. And when I say I ran out, I mean there was still power left, but very little. Here we go. Nearly at the top. So there you are, the Velowave Ranger FMTB3 fat tyre bike. As electric bicycles go, it's not bad, but there are lots of things about this bike that don't feel like they'll last a long time. When Michael took this up a mountain in Washington State, he had trouble with the seat post. It came loose a couple of times. He also noticed that the stem at the front was difficult. It kept becoming loose, which on a bike that you're going to ride on trails and off-road really shouldn't be happening. I've also noticed a couple of times that there have been some strange rattles coming from this bike, and while the motor is certainly powerful, the power delivery over the battery's state of charge varies quite a lot. When the battery is full, you get a really torquey performance, you get an insanely good top speed and acceleration. But when the battery is getting low, you do notice some voltage sag. That tells me that the battery management system on this is not as good as it could be. In terms of overall feel, when you're on gravel, you're going downhill, this is particularly competent. The tyres are not the grippiest I've seen, and we've discussed that maybe they're slightly over pressure because you've been driving primarily on tarmacked roads and gravel roads, so we pump them up a little bit. I think if you drop the pressure, it might feel a little bit more secure. The suspension, it's great downhill, but when you're going uphill, when you're really working your feet, you do want to turn it into a locked position. In terms of build quality, this looks great, but there are also some issues about the materials this is made with. Michael and I have both noticed how soft some of the metal is. These bolts are soft. The attachments they screw into are soft. And when we actually assembled the bike, Michael, who used to be a machinist before coming to work at the channel, noticed that there were lots of marks inside the bike. Marks that were made by machining. Marks that indicated that someone had machined the parts either too quickly or had not put enough care into setting up the machine when they started the manufacturing process. In other words, corners were cut. And I think that is what I feel about this bike. It is so competent in so many ways. It is blisteringly quick. It is incredibly fun to ride. But I can't help wonder how long your investment will last. It feels like a throwaway bike for someone who wants to get into fat bikes and isn't sure that it's for them. And if that sounds like you, fine, buy it. It might last a season, it might last 3. And we've been talking on the staff about how if we had one, and obviously this is one that has been provided to us by Velowave for the review, how we would work to improve it. We'd change some of the gearing on the bike. We'd put a new chain set on the rear. We'd modify some of the handlebar geometry. We'd change some of the bearings up front. We'd try and put a new seat on. And if we did all of those things and spent a couple of $100, this would be a cracking bike. And it would probably be pretty reliable too. but the hardware lets this down. And for that reason, I just can't recommend it. That is it for today. If you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to leave your thoughts below or in our free to join Discord chat room. There is a link in the video description. And if you really liked this video, why not leave us a super thanks? It's easy to do and everything you do send goes to helping us make great content. If you want a generalized news roundup in the world of cleaner, greener, safer and smarter vehicles, do check out our news roundup show every weekend. And don't forget that we produce content every single day on this network for you all to enjoy, from deep dives and tutorials through to unboxings and reviews and much more. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel and to our other channel, Transport Evolved Take 2, and give the bell a gentle ding to make sure you're told when our next video goes live. And don't forget to fill out our annual viewer survey. It's still up, it takes about 20 minutes, and your responses will help us better represent our audience to sponsors and partners of the channel and make sure that we can continue to make content that you really like. Thank on behalf of the entire TE crew. Go out to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month supporters. Special thanks to our $50 a month supporters: Chris Maxwell, Pedro Mura-Pinheiro, Patrick Boyarski, Bennett Elder, Brian Newton, Dave Kitchen, Michael Goad, Ricky Leon, Andrew Martin, Guido Drahota, Brophy Wolf, Tesla in the Gong, Gordon C, Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Regine Fellows, Rory Litzwin, Jim Burness, Chris Asentar, Chris and Michael Johnson, Peter Dillinger and Denny Hyde, and our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters: Anonymous Freak, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, Joe Bresney, Reed R, JP Fagerback, Russ, Will Graylin, Matthew Drobnak, John Lyons, Andrew Glenn, Paul Conway, Laura Reynolds, Ellery Hensley and Ian. If you'd like to be part of that amazing list, you can find links below for Patreon, or you can hit the join button on YouTube, or you can show us your support by going to our cool swag store, or by sending us some Ko-fi, links below. And if you're unable to support us, just know that just watching the channel really makes a difference. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving.